Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this beautiful day in June 2021. This is the CPS Coordinators Forum, and we are delighted to have you here. Once again, we have a packed schedule, lots of great speakers and a lot of good information for you. So we are going to jump right in. Jim Savage is going to be taking care of the slides for us today. So Jim, can you advance the slide for me, please? Well, while Jim is doing that, I'll remind you to just put your name and where you're from in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. So today, how you doing, Jim? There you go. Next slide, please. Tammy, I'm going to hand this over to you. Are you our first speaker? I think we've missed a slide.
Yeah.
So
no worries. So thank you and welcome. So my name is Tammy Franks, and I am presenting today on behalf of the National Child Passenger Safety Board. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about the hybrid curriculum. We did do a series of webinars in May, and I wanted to make certain that the state and territory CPS coordinators have the information, as well as any regional people who may be joining us. So that you can share out to your instructors in case they did not make the webinars, but also to set the stage as we move forward. So I am presenting on behalf of the board, as I said. So what you'll see here is an overview of the hybrid curriculum. So in November of 2020, so just not even a year ago, the board announced to the child passenger safety community that we were actively developing a hybrid offering of the National Child Passenger Safety Technician Certification Training Curriculum, consisting of e-learning, virtual, and hands-on components. So this training is expected to be launched sometime probably November, December of 2021, so late 2021. And it will be an additional format to offer the National Child Passenger Safety Technician Training, which traditionally is held in person. So we will talk a little bit about what the hybrid training will look like, and then we're going to go to more state-specific information, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. We can answer those at the end. So if questions come up during this presentation, please enter them in the chat box. Jim, could you advance the slide, please? Thank you. So this is an example of the learning path or learning map of the curriculum. You will see there are 3 different rows, each one sharing with you the components of the hybrid training. So in the top row, we have the self-paced e-learning. In the middle row, we have the virtual component. And in the third row, we have the classroom or in-person component. Across the top, you will see that the curriculum is divided into 4 different weeks. When we set this up for the presentation purposes, we set it up on a 4-week calendar. And the board is considering about the format and the timing, and we'll have more recommendations later this summer about the specific timing. But for presentation purposes, we're just going to break it into 4 weeks so that you can see how the information is broken up or chunked out, as we like to call it. So looking in the first column for week 1, you will see that there are 5 modules covered that week. Including from Module 1, the introduction, through the Module 2, the technician roles, the crash dynamics in Module 3, seatbelt systems in Module 4, and finally in Module 5, airbags. Right down below that, you'll see 3.0 hours. That hour represents what is referred to as seat time, or the estimated time that the student will spend in front of the computer doing the e-learning content. That does not include practice time or activity time. So there are some learn, practice, and explains that the students will do outside of this format because we don't know how long that will take them. Some students may We can give estimates, and we'll give guidelines as we move forward. But some students may spend a whole bunch of time looking at their neighbors' vehicles, maybe the other caregivers in their house or in their circles, their friends, to look at seatbelt systems. Other students may only visit a couple vehicles. So we'll give estimates, but right now what we're providing is the estimated seat time or learning time. During week 1, there's also virtual components. The students have a mandatory kickoff session that allows them to get set up in the learning management system, as well as in a team communication system, and just making certain that their virtual component works so that they're comfortable using it. There are optional drop-in office hours, so similar to visiting with the instructor team before class or after class to be able to ask your questions. We will recreate that environment in a virtual setting. And then there's a mandatory checkpoint. That mandatory checkpoint will include learn, practice, and explain activities from modules 1 through 5. In addition, it will also include some conversation, answering questions that may have come up in those modules. And there will be a preview of what's to come in that second week. During the second week, or week 2 in the second column, we will cover the module 6 with lowered anchors and tethers, and then begin the introduction to car seats, moving into rear-facing car seats. The expected seat time is approximately 3.25 hours. Remember, that does not include the hands-on or the practice time. So we'll learn, practice, and explain, activity time or the practice time. There's also virtual components that week. The students will have the option of participating in drop-in office hours, as well as a second checkpoint covering that week's activities and answering any questions, and then previewing the next week. Additionally, the students will complete quiz number 1 through the learning management system, so in that virtual online setting. Moving into the third column is week 3, where the students continue their exploration of car seats with the forward-facing module, module 9. And then module 10, they'll cover booster seats and seat belts, and then moving into other vehicles. And I believe that we're going to end up moving module 12 to this week 3 as well. And that just has to do with timing for some of the quizzes. But at this point, we have it listed in week 4. There are virtual components again. The students will do drop-in office hours and a checkpoint, as well as complete quiz 2 and skills evaluation 3 via the learning management system. As a reminder, skills evaluation 3 is a newer format, or new format for this curriculum, where it's pictures and the students answer questions based on the pictures. So this can easily be converted to an online evaluation experience. And then finally, in the 4th week, this is when we'll see the introduction of actual in-person classroom time. So we'll cover either modules 12 and 13 or module 13 only. So we're going to look at the communication skills and also how to use and maintain our technical skills. There'll be a mandatory checkpoint, and quiz 3 will be conducted via the learning management system. And then finally, there are 2 half days. They're long half days. So some people have asked if you could make it one long day. We are suggesting to hold 2 half-day sessions. So you'll see the in-person day 1 will include hands-on practice time of approximately 3 hours in the vehicle, practicing identifying seatbelt systems and airbags and putting everything together that the students have learned over the last few weeks, installing the car seats, and then doing skills evaluation number 1. This is estimated to be about 4 hours. That skills 1 is identifying airbags and seatbelt airbags in the vehicle, and that is scheduled for approximately 1 hour. On day 2, the students will come and start their day with doing skills evaluation 3, which is the selecting and installing car seats and booster seats. And then they'll move into skills 4. Skills 4 is the car seat checkup event that is held at the end of the class. It's been renamed to Skills Evaluation 4 in the 2020 edition of the curriculum. Next slide, please. So what I've done is I've put together a couple sample schedules for you, and you'll see here in just a moment. So Jim, if you can click through the boxes as I talk, thank you. You'll see the kickoff session there in the orange. And that after the kickoff session, which every student must attend, there'll then be the release of the content of the information. This class, since it's a weekday class, I set it up to have the content delivered on Fridays. Next click, please, so that they can review it and be ready for the drop-in office hours on Tuesday. That will then prepare them for the mandatory checkpoints on Thursdays, with the exception of the last week. That mandatory checkpoint will happen on Tuesday. And then finally, that will prepare them for the in-person at the end of the month, those 2 consecutive days. For me here, I was thinking one afternoon and then the morning of the next, giving the students time to travel back home on the afternoon of the 29th, so they would only need, if they were out of town, 1 night of lodging. Next slide, please. Another example that is included is one here showing you a weekend, an evening and weekend class. So sometimes we have students from settings who aren't able to take off their work weeks and participate. And so they want to do this on their own time, or this may work better with their work schedule. So you'll see here that the meetings are planned for Saturdays, with the kickoff session happening on the first Saturday, and the content releasing early the following week. Jim, there should be boxes as well in these. There you go. And then moving into the optional drop-in office hours a few days after the content releases. And then finally for the mandatory checkpoints on Saturdays, with the exception of the last week when it'll be on Wednesday, and prep of the in-person days. I scheduled for Friday afternoon and Saturday. So the board is working on doing some scheduling and some examples, and we should have some additional materials available in the month of July that we will post, and I'll share the website with you later. So if you are interested in seeing more detailed schedules, we can share those with you, and they will be available on the board's website. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is just spend a little bit of time sharing with you what the e-learning modules will look like. So next slide, please. So you'll see here, this is the branding for the curriculum. It is designed to complement and look very similar to the current branding for the 2020 curriculum. So you'll see the 4 icons, the NHTSA icons, and those colors will be used, as well as with the NHTSA logo. This is a NHTSA curriculum, and it's maintained by the National Child Passenger Safety Board, just as the in-person curriculum. Additionally, the one thing that you'll see that's a little bit different is the use of the technician on the right-hand side there. She will be repeated in the headers of all the different formats that are used to help signify that this is a hybrid curriculum as opposed to the in-person curriculum, but also carrying a theme through the different components, because they set up a little bit differently depending on the components and how they're delivered. There will be 13 modules in the hybrid curriculum, just as there are in the in-person curriculum, and all of the information that's in the tech guides will also be included in the e-learning modules. The order may be slightly different in order to aid presentation in that e-learning format. And then each module will be broken into micro segments or learning segments. And so the students can return to those segments quickly, find the information. So maybe in Module 4, they have questions about a latch plate, and they can quickly find that information by returning to Module 4 in the e-learning, clicking on the menu, and finding the information. They won't have that for that particular segment. Some activities have been added to the e-learning to help facilitate the interactive classroom environment, trying to mimic it as much as possible. When audio is used, there will be closed captioning for those segments. So let's move forward here and just look at a couple slides. So what you're seeing here is I'm showing you the naming of the segments as well. You won't see this information. You'll only see the information on the right, but I just wanted to show you how we're breaking down the information. So you'll see with that top arrow there is pointing that we've been worked really hard to use images that clearly show what we're depict what we're talking about. So these are non-locking latch plates. And this is showing you a picture of a sliding latch plate, and we've added both the front and the back view as if you were standing in front of the room, holding up the latch plate and sharing it with the students, and then passing it around the room. Additionally, you'll see with the bottom arrow there, we've worked to keep the training the e-learnings as engaging as possible, and forcing the students to complete the content. They're going to want to complete it. They're going to love the way it's set up, but this will force them to complete it as well because they're not able to advance until they look at the picture in those sliding bars. Next slide, please. So you'll see here that the students will have the opportunity to select the images to enlarge so that they get a better view. So here it looks like there's a lot of pictures of airbag markings. Next slide, please. Simply by clicking on the image, it will enlarge. They click on it again, it will drop back into the learning module segments or the segments, and they can continue on. Next slide, please. We've used shapes and lines, icons. We have used some color coding, but when we use color coding, we make certain to use other ways to depict the information in case somebody is not able to distinguish between colors. So here you'll see an example of lower anchors and tethers in vehicles. And actually, when you click on those, they will bring up additional examples for the student. The curriculum designer is hard to update their imagery of the hybrid curriculum, giving it a fresh new look. This is one of my favorite. I share it each time. So it's showing you the children in terms of the best car seat is the one that's based on the age, weight, height, and developmental level, but also fits the vehicle and can be used correctly every time. What I love about this slide is that all the different kids across the bottom showing that there's not one car seat that fits each one of these children. That's something what works for that one child may be very different for the next. Next slide, please. Again, here's an example of interaction. So this is from Module 7 when we're learning about car seat parts. You'll notice that numbers 1 through 4 are grayed out. Those means that means that those have been selected, and I have looked at the information. The students must select each number and look at where that component is on the car seat in order to progress to the next portion of the e-learning. Next slide, please. Another learning tool that we have used are called flashcards. So this, don't be alarmed. This is an example of misuse. The students are trying to identify what the misuse is. So they get the picture that you see here. Next slide, please. They will then flip the flashcard over and will receive a selection error, as you see here. They won't be able to see them side by side, unfortunately. We're limited by the program, but they will have that information and be able to flip back and forth, just like you would like with a playing card or a piece of paper. Next slide, please. Additionally, to enhance the learning experience, we have worked with 25 self-selected instructors from around the country adding video explanations. So they may be providing technical information such as how to lock a seatbelt. They may be talking about, additionally, they may be talking about in the field, so sharing some of their knowledge that might be helpful. Maybe if the latch plate doesn't stay parallel, what you can do to help keep a locking latch plate locked. Or it may be in the field addressing things such as communication skills and cultural competence. So I can tell you I've been viewing a bunch of these this week, and I'm excited for everybody to see them. I'm just amazed at the talent that has been shared from across the country from so many instructors, and very grateful for them. So I hope that you enjoy them as well. Next slide, please. So moving quickly to the overview of the virtual component. Next slide. I think most of us have gotten used to meeting in this format. This is from our board meeting in May. Next slide. We are going to strongly encourage that students do have video capabilities to participate that will help to build engagement and community. So rather than just when, that it's much more interactive if we can see each other's faces and expressions. We will be using WebEx to deliver this virtual component, and WebEx was selected because it works across multiple settings, especially those with strict firewalls, such as people who are housed in government and hospital settings. We will also be using a team communication platform. More than likely, this will be Slack. We're moving forward with that. If you're not familiar with Slack, it allows you to thread conversations or channel conversations into specific topics. So rather than having long email chains, it's a much easier way of communicating with teams. So I encourage you to take a look at slack.com if you haven't seen that. And then finally, we will be producing instructor or materials to help support the mandatory virtual checkpoints, so that when a student is participating in a checkpoint, it is the same experience regardless of what course. So similar to the in-person, there'll be guidelines for the instructors to do the virtual checkpoints as well. Next slide, please. And then finally, onto that classroom component. Next slide. Will look very similar to what we already do, just very concentrated, but the students should come in prepped. They have been able to learn at their own pace. So if they're a quick learner, they've progressed through the e-learning modules very quickly. If they need to review, they've had the time to review the information in the e-learning. And so you'll see for the classroom components, we'll spend about 3 hours doing hands-on activities and then completing skills 1, 2, and 4. Remember that skills 3, because it's written, can be delivered via the learning management, will be delivered via the learning management system. And then just a quick development update moving forward. So next slide. And one more. I wanted to just give you an overview of where we are. So if you saw us in May, you'll note that this slide has been updated. We have finished the community reviews of of modules 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Modules 6 and 8 are currently out for community review. Module 11 should be ready in the next week or so. And Module 12, I still have it over in the far right column, but it should be moving over to the middle column here later this week. I anticipate that. And Module 1 is immediately behind. We will be finishing up modules 1, 12, and 13 before moving on to 9 and 10, which are forward-facing and booster seats. And the reasoning for that is we want to get the community review back from module 8, which is rear-facing car seats, make sure that everybody likes the format, how it's presented before building out modules 9 and 10, because they're similar material, they'll be built in a similar way. So that is why we're out of not doing it in order. Next slide, please. We want to keep you updated from as part of the National Child Passenger Safety Board. So please visit cpsboard.org/hybrid. We have a whole webpage dedicated to the hybrid curriculum, the webinars that go into much more detail for May. The recording is on there. We'll be putting additional materials on there. And then next slide, you will also find a link to the comment form. And if you have questions or comments, please submit that. We do review everything that comes in and answer them for you. So we want to hear from you. It helps us be better and also anticipate the questions that we'll receive from the field. So I'm now going to turn this back over to Mandi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. We really appreciate the information, and we're going to jump right into Beth's presentation with Safe Kids.
Okay, so I want to make sure, can y'all hear me?
Yes, Beth, we can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure since the sound option was a little different today. But I want to say thank you to Mandi and Tammy for giving me the opportunity to address some of the questions that came up during the webinars that were hosted by them last month during May. And there have been quite a few questions that have come up when we're talking about some of the things that are certification related. And what I'd like to go through are questions that I saw either multiple times in the spreadsheet and just address those. So next slide, please, Jim. So the things I want to cover and go over, questions that we had about student and instructor ratios, instructor hours, paid instructor opportunities, Instructor Candidacy, and long-distance/international students. Next slide, please. So when we look at the instructor and student ratios, currently the requirement is a minimum of 2 instructors for every course, and we were asked, would we still have that same requirement when it comes to the hybrid course? We'll talk about that a little bit more on another slide, but that is current requirement for any of our current courses being scheduled. Currently, the requirement for instructor to student ratio is a 1:5. And the main reason we kind of have an instructor team built into all of our courses is really to ensure that the material that is being taught in a consistent manner. You have checks and balances between instructors who are working together on a team. You don't have an instructor kind of going off on their own and teaching their version of something. And so given that the majority of this curriculum is online, and it is a student-led curriculum when it comes to viewing everything online and virtual reality, then we have those checkpoints that are built in where you are working with an instructor. At this time, we anticipate it's going to be the same requirement, that you would still have at least a minimum of 2 instructors for each course, and you would still have an instructor to student ratio for 1:5. Some of that would also be, the reasoning behind that is, just as we're on a platform right now and Zoom, and you'll be able to see your students' faces, you'll be able to see your instructors' faces. Again, you will have that check and balance for having at least 2 instructors being registered to teach the course. Next slide, please. So instructor hours, there were a lot of questions asked about how will instructor hours be calculated. Pretty much what we're looking at now is, right now, instructor hours are calculated based on lead instructor prep work. If you're mentoring, if you're lecturing, and if you're observing and doing hands-on skills and exercises, those are how you get your hours now, when you're working each of those types of situations and scenarios. The expectations for the hybrid course will definitely, your lead instructor is going to be earning those same type of hours for the prep work and the prep week before the courses actually are dropped each week. And then during those weekly checkpoints, and just a bit of clarification for anyone from maybe a law enforcement side that's used to hearing a child safety seat checkup event called a checkpoint. Within the hybrid curriculum, that weekly checkpoint is really where the students are coming and having this type of a Zoom meeting set up where they are seeing the instructor and seeing the student. So those are called weekly checkpoints within the hybrid curriculum. And then, of course, your actual skills exercises at the end of the course. We can definitely see that you would be earning instructor hours for all of those times. Instructor hours during your drop-in time probably need to have, just a little discussion on that, because you're not actually lecturing like we would when you are hosting a regular in-person training. And if you have someone come to you during the break and ask questions, or during your lunchtime, you're not typically counting that as instructor hours anyway. So what we would be looking at is pretty much what I've written here is your prep week, your prep work, definitely your weekly checkpoints, because you are then talking and leading some things on the screen at that point, and then also your actual skills at the end of the course. Next slide, please. This question, interestingly enough, came up a couple of times. People were asking, well, how will we get paid for this? Is there funding to teach the hybrid course? Basically, how do you get paid currently to teach when you teach? those would be the funding sources that you would have to explore to see if whoever is funding your time to teach, whether you contract out to another organization or if it's part of your own job, those are going to be really what you need to look at in teaching the hybrid course, just as you would an in-person course. I don't know, haven't heard any conversation at all about there being specific funding being set aside or creating a funding stream just to teach or to pay instructors who would be teaching the hybrid course. Next slide, please. A lot of questions came in about how would instructor candidacy work with the hybrid course. Well, let's look at what's currently required for an instructor candidate. They must be lecturing for at least 5 hours, divided amongst 3 modules. They must set up at least one hands-on exercise and lead at least one hands-on exercise, and of course, participate fully throughout the course, pre and post meetings. For an IC to meet these requirements, there's no opportunity to gain that required teaching experience in the hybrid course where you were not standing in front of a classroom and actually lecturing and teaching your students. At this point, we don't see how the instructor candidacy process would work within a hybrid course. So that is not something that we are looking at building into the hybrid course as an instructor candidacy opportunity, because you need that instructor candidate. You need to see how they handle a classroom. How do they work with students? How do they have student management skills? Are they able to regain control of the classroom when a student tends to take it over and keep going on and on? You're not going to get those opportunities in a student virtual type setting. So at this point, we don't see instructor candidacy becoming part of the hybrid course. Next slide, please. Long distance and international students. There were several comments that came out of the webinars asking whether or not this would allow instructors to teach from one location or one country and have their students in a different location or a different country. The hybrid course definitely requires in-person attendance for all students during the end of the course for your skills. And so there's really no way to set up a course that would allow an international student unless they're going to be traveling into your location where you're having your hands-on portion and your skills portion. Other than that option, we don't see how this would work with an international mix of students and instructors, because you do have to have that in-person component. And so organizations that are used to teaching in a rural area, and maybe they travel to that rural area and pull students in from counties all around that come in for the week, are going to have to rethink how they would handle this. And also, instructors may have to decide that maybe for those types of courses, this is not an option if they really need to be able to be out in the rural area, or maybe they go to that rural area for the one day for the hands-on and they get permission and have the travel budget to be able to do that, then they can bring their students all into one location. But you have to think through that the requirement is still there for that in-person attendance for all the students in the course. So if you're spreading your course out over 4 weeks, such as has been shown in the schedules and the examples, it might be possible then, if everyone is has an agreement and understands that we're all going to come together in this one location, that may not be where the instructor is from, may not be their office location, maybe it will be in that rural community or in a different city or different location. Just ensure that you've put enough planning in place that you can bring all of your students together for that final 2 half days or however you're going to schedule that part of your training. And beyond that, I think my next slide is just kind of our wrap-up slide, that these were the top questions that we had. These were the ones that I saw multiple times that felt like it needed the most attention at this point on addressing these questions. And if anyone has any other questions about the certification side of it, feel free to email me. I should have put my email address on there. You can still email the hybrid curriculum email through NSC, and those would be funneled over to me for Safe Kids to handle over the certification component. And I guess if there's any questions and we have time to answer those, put your questions in the chat box. Other than that, thanks a lot, Mandi. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Beth. We really appreciate the information. We're so excited to be kicking this off. Next, Nick is going to join us from Wisconsin and talk a little bit about using the hybrid curriculum and what it means to him. Nick, I'll turn it over to you. Nick, I'm unable to hear you if you're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
I can, thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
I was double muted. Okay, sounds good. Hi, I'm Nick. I work with Children's Wisconsin, and I'll be talking a little bit about our Wisconsin Child Passenger Safety Program. Next slide, please. So our CPST certification training courses are set up through me. I manage all of the courses throughout the state, and I do that by reaching out to the instructors, seeing who is interested in teaching, and then we kind of strategically place our courses throughout the state so that we can reach the maximum amount of individuals. Once the courses are scheduled and registered, I then post the information on our Safe Kids Wisconsin website, and this serves as like the hub for where we post these courses. And then individuals typically on a normal year can go to our website and register all through there, as well as apply for scholarships. Due to COVID, we have a limited number of courses and all of them are limited in size. So this year we're having them sign up on an email notification list. And then once the course opens up in their area, we will reach out to them then. But typically they're able to go and register on their own and do everything on their end. And I see when they register for a scholarship, I can approve it. And then they can go in and register for the course and complete payment and do everything online. Next slide. We use a system called Learning Stream. This is how we manage all of our courses and the registrations, the scholarships, the payments. It's a pretty nice system for how it operates, and I'm able to keep track of all the students' information, which is necessary for when I go back in and register them for the course through the organization platform, through the cert.safekids. I go in and add them as an affiliate, and I do all the registering on my end through Safe Kids Worldwide. So we collect all that information ahead of time using that platform, which is really great. What's really nice about it, it automatically sends confirmation emails and reminders emails for the courses. Like I said, they can register for their scholarship through there, and then on my end, I get an alert, and then I go in and approve the scholarships. And what's also really nice is that it creates an automatic wait list that can automatically add students to the course if someone drops out, or you can manually go through and add individuals and kind of override the system. Next slide. And then kind of one of the last portions of coordinating the course is obviously getting all the materials to that instructor team. So we do have a training trailer that is stocked with a bunch of different supplies that is needed for a course, which include demonstration dolls, car seats and booster seats, demo seats, aftermarket products, pretty much you name it, and we have it in that training trailer. So this is coordinated by myself in the Wisconsin DOT, and we transport this trailer to all the different CPST courses throughout the state. And then they can use this trailer for their 3 or 4 day course. And it has all the supplies that they need in order to be successful. And then I also coordinate and create all the materials for the course. So those include name tags, the folders that contain just different printouts and our law cards and different materials. with clipboards, pens, things like that. I put together a whole box and I ship it out to the lead instructor or site coordinator so that they can set it up and use it for their individual course. Next slide. I guess that was it for my slides, but in reference to the hybrid curriculum, I know that we have had some of those same questions that Beth answered, so I'm glad that she was able to go on and answer those about paying the instructors. I don't see it impacting us too much. We'll still be able to send that training trailer around the state to the different courses. Individuals can still register through us, and I'm sure I can use a similar process to register them virtually for the hybrid curriculum. So I think overall it'll be pretty smooth and simplistic, and I think it'll benefit some of those individuals who are not able to commit to the 3 or 4 days in a row, and it'll be nice that it's spread out, especially for those who can't get off of work for all that time. So if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out or ask them now or at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate the information, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this all works with the hybrid and what you have to do a little bit differently or what works for you. And this actually leads into me. Next slide, please, Jim. My name is Mandi Seethaler. For this presentation, I am not presenting on behalf of the National Child Passenger Safety Board, but I'm going to speak to you as the statewide CPS coordinator for the Alaska Highway Safety Office, and I work for the Center for Safe Alaskans. Next slide. So, although not everyone on this call is an instructor or a technician, I'm sure you're going to have a variety of new technicians, new instructors, along with all your seasoned technicians and instructors in your area. It's been a little bit interesting to consider where I started with my technician training to where we're headed for the coming year. And the evolution of the training has been dramatic and exciting. We have streamlined, we have simplified, and we have aligned our messaging, and we've incorporated adult learning theory. So I originally trained back in 2007, and I'm certainly looking forward to the hybrid curriculum that is coming out, but although we don't use them anymore, I have a little stash of all my technician guides. Next slide, please. So if you think about it, that very first time you took a technician course, things arrived in the mail. Remember that when we used to mail things? And as I considered how we're going to implement the new hybrid in Alaska, I considered what I thought might be some of the biggest challenges. And technology is the very first thing that I thought of. And remembering back, we've navigated a lot of technical challenges. When the curriculum was released in 2014, the revision, I anxiously awaited for my CD that came in the mail. And it was a super cool option that Carrie with Safe Kids could send us a flash drive. But there was the long wait for the post office to deliver, and did it arrive, and all of those things. But with the release of the revised curriculum in 2020, we had an automatic download. We could do it in just moments. Sometimes it takes just a few minutes because those are some pretty big documents, but the receipt of the information was pretty direct. And now I'm thinking of the curriculum's going to be online. How am I going to do this? And I've never taught that way. I've been an instructor since 2012, and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to deliver the online curriculum. There is going to be support. With the current curriculum, there was a release of a revised instructor prep guide and a planning and logistics guide, and a ton of other supplemental resources. With the hybrid curriculum, there will be new and specific resources to help us all figure it out together. Next slide. So this slide is a little bit fun. It shows the connected road system in Alaska, which is minimal, but we have road systems all over the state. So I'm thinking about this hybrid curriculum, and I'm thinking, what am I going to need to send out? Nick, you talked about your trailer and you package it up. Well, I don't have that option. So what do I need to send? And there's going to be a suggested list of supplies outlined in some of the new supporting materials. What are students and instructors going to need to be successful? Vehicle, car seat, doll, noodle, locking clip, and each technician in the hybrid curriculum will receive a technician guide. Next slide. So this slide is a little bit fun. It shows the connected road system in Alaska, which is minimal, but we have road systems all over the state. So I'm thinking about this hybrid curriculum, and I'm thinking, what am I going to need to send out? Nick, you talked about your trailer and you package it up. Well, I don't have that option. So what do I need to send? And there's going to be a suggested list of supplies outlined in some of the new supporting materials. What are students and instructors going to need to be successful? Vehicle, car seat, doll, noodle, locking clip, and each technician in the hybrid curriculum will receive a technician guide. So how am I going to do this? You know what? This is a really, really big opportunity for all of us. Students are going to need car seats. So what a wonderful opportunity to build new partnerships. National partners, local partners, community partners, and of course me. I can deliver materials. I can ask community members to loan or share. I can reach out to national and local partners for donated services. We use a lot of planes in Alaska, and I'm picturing my training seats headed out statewide. Let's put it on a plane. And it's also an opportunity to work with some instructors, technicians, community injury prevention leaders to share our resources and to help support one another. So I think that it's a time to think out of the box and how are we going to deliver these supplies and get what we need to our students. But how are we also going to develop new partnerships? We can reach out and find new people to work with, to get the supplies there, to help our students and to do the work to make this hybrid curriculum successful. Next slide. So what am I most excited about the hybrid curriculum? Well, first off, we have the opportunity to use the hybrid curriculum or to use the current, and I think that gives us a lot of flexibility in what works best for us and our situation. For me, I can reach students statewide, so if they only have to come in for the seat check, we can work the whole month on teaching the content. The new videos and the new CPS images. So the content in the hybrid curriculum is going to be the same, but there's going to be videos that are newly created. There's CPS images like locking clips and latch plates, and they're going to be very good pictures. You know, sometimes you're standing up in the front of the classroom and you're trying to show a locking clip, and it makes it a little challenging. Thanks, Jim. So it just helps us figure that out. It helps us give better images to our students. They can see exactly what we're looking for. The last thing I want to mention is just the consistency in messaging. You know, we have such a wide variety of instructors and how they present the material and what they say and how they say it. This will really dial in the narrative and help us use the same messaging for all of our students with pictures, colors, arrows. It's really going to help us develop better CPS technicians, and I'm really excited about it. So I want to just end with saying I'm excited about all the opportunities we have in the hybrid curriculum to find new and wonderful ways to work. But right now, we would like to take a few minutes to take your questions. If you can put them in the chat box and let us know, what are you wondering about? What do we need to find out for you, and what kind of information can we provide for you and for your states? How can we support you? All right, so we did do a feedback form, and here were some of the things that were on their mind: how to handle technical difficulties, students' compliance with completing assignments, providing car seats. And again, that's where I kind of started thinking out of the box. How are we going to do that? How am I going to do that in my state? And what I would like to do is share ideas with you. How are you going to do it in your state? And maybe we can share ideas. How are we going to manipulate the schedule to work for groups like firefighters who have an unusual schedule? And this new hybrid curriculum is going to allow us to find ways to address that. How are our teaching hours going to work? And what about instructor support? What if you've never used WebEx? How are we going to figure that out? So we know that some of these things are on your mind. Jim is not able to remove himself from mute, so if you'll put your questions in the chat box, I will look for them and we will get through that. Tammy, did you have anything to add to this list?
Sure. If we could have Jim, can you go back a slide? So we needed questions about technical difficulties. We had, very ironic that was the first one there. So how to handle technical difficulties. So if students are having issues with the learning management system, that will be delivered. The learning management system will be managed by the National Safety Council, who manages the National Child Passenger Safety Board. They do have a helpline. Additionally, we do have a program support line. So you'll see, if you advance one slide, our information to contact us on our toll-free number, as well as the secretariat at cpsboard.org email. So we will have people available to help both with the learning management system, answer questions about the communication platform, in addition to helping with WebEx. So those support systems will be in place, similar to how we answer questions now about using the cpsboard.org. And then additionally, I just wanted to touch quickly on the instructor support, if I may. So with the instructor support, we will have a plan that we will launch later this fall, talking about how we'll help to support instructors. What we are hearing and what we are thinking about is looking at offering us one. We're going to have an e-learning that the instructors who want to teach will need to complete, and it will give them some guidelines about how to present in a virtual setting. As we know, it's a little bit different than in a classroom, how to engage the students in that setting. It will go over how to use the different resources that are available. Additionally, we will have, I think what we're talking about doing is creating courses, pilot courses in a way, so I'll put that in quotes, we'll run through them quickly, but where the instructors can participate in the virtual setting as they would, as a student would participate, so that what I'm hearing from the field is that instructors will feel more confident if they can see how sit through a course that's being run. So we may run mini courses. We're going to ask for help from the members of the National Child Passenger Safety Board. We'll be doing additional webinars. We want to empower instructors to feel comfortable to deliver the curriculum in this new format as well. And then I believe also, Mandi, there was one more question. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay, Tammy. There's actually a couple of questions in there about the expected release date, and then Tracy Whitman had a really excellent point that I think we need to make sure we address.
So the expected release date is still a little, can I use squishy? Is that a good word? We'll have a better idea later this summer. So we're hoping, right now we tentatively have a webinar planned for September 14th. We'll start advertising that soon for an update on the hybrid curriculum. We are hoping, our goal is to have, if the pilots go well, that the curriculum will be available by the end of 2021. I am asking instructors to please wait until, if they're thinking about teaching a hybrid, to wait until January of 22 to begin thinking about their first course. And that just makes certain that everything flows smoothly and all systems are in place and working. It's a little bit more complicated to deliver this one for the first time because there's so many different components and systems that need to be updated. And then you said you had another question too?
Yeah, Tracy Whitman had a really good point about how to help agencies understand that their staff will need time to complete the assignments during work time versus if they went to a class and could do the work during the class. So we need to make sure in our welcome letter or our description of the course that we include that there's homework, there's work to be done during their work time.
And I can add on to that too, Mandi. Something that we're working on, Tracy, that I think will be helpful. Thank you for that insight. We are working on a comparison sheet between the in-person and hybrid training, and it will include seat time in there, so that's showing that just because there's only 2 days of in-person that are, approximately 9 hours versus 24 hours in person, we still will show we still will be able to show the amount of time that the students will need to do that seat time and then activities and practice as well. So we'll work on incorporating that for you.
I'm excited about that, Tammy. I think that'll help us as instructors as well decide which course we need to offer in our area.
Fantastic, yes. And we hope to have that available by September as well, so that as you begin thinking about scheduling classes for 2022, we're hopeful that this will allow states to offer more courses than they normally do, because it won't be as much time out of office for instructors where this may not be their primary responsibility. It just helps us to extend the reach of the certification training.
Tammy, can you remind us where to send our questions for the hybrid or our input?
Sure. cpsboard.org/hybrid. Super easy. Or if you just go to cpsboard.org, down on our homepage, of course, we have a hot link right now to the hybrid webpage because that is the hottest topic for us right now. So, we encourage you to reach out. And like I said, we do look at every single one. I look at them as soon as they come in because I'm always curious what's going on in the field and what people are thinking, because it just helps us. If we know what you're thinking, it helps us be stronger and provide a better program nationally.
Tammy, one more thing. There is a link to the recording of the hybrid webinar that's about an hour long at cpsboard.org, right?
That is correct. On cpsboard.org/hybrid. It is there. So I encourage you, if you want to see the slides in more detail. And I also encourage you just to get familiar with that page because we'll continue to update it as we have more information available. And like I said, in a couple months, we'll have a much better idea of the timeline. We're moving so quickly right now, but we'll have a much better idea in a couple months.
And Beth put her email address in the chat box. If you have questions about certification, please make sure to send those to her, or you can send them through the hybrid feedback form, and we will include those in our spreadsheet that we share so we can all see what the questions are and what we need to do, but please note her email in the chat box. Thank you, NHTSA Region 3. We appreciate your feedback. Well, we are going to stay on the line for just a couple of minutes, but we'll go ahead and end the recording now. We sure appreciate you attending today and listening. We are excited about our July meeting coming up.